My dear friends, gather close, for I wish to share with you a tale that speaks to the very essence of human nature. A story of legacy, betrayal, and the inexorable march of justice. It is a tale that unfolds not in the grand halls of kings or the battlefields of nations, but in the quiet, precise world of those who measure time itself. This is the story of Elias Vance, a master craftsman whose name was stolen, whose legacy was plundered, and whose revenge was as patient and precise as the timepieces he created. In the heart of London's Clerkenwell district, where cobblestones still remember the footsteps of centuries past, there stood a workshop that existed outside the relentless flow of modern time. Vance & Son was more than a business. It was a sanctuary of craftsmanship, a temple where the ancient art of horology was practiced with religious devotion. The air itself seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of a dozen antique clocks, each tick a testament to generations of skill passed from father to son. Elias Vance was the third generation to bear this sacred responsibility. His grandfather had been a master whose creations graced the halls of power and prestige. His father, Thomas, had refined this legacy, focusing his genius on the intricate world of the wristwatch. But Thomas was more than a craftsman. He was a visionary who saw poetry in the precise dance of gears and springs. Before death claimed him, Thomas poured the final decade of his life into a single revolutionary creation, the Chronos anchor. This was no ordinary escapement, but a mechanism that promised to redefine the very nature of timekeeping. It was his magnum opus, left unfinished like a symphony missing its final movement. His dying wish to Elias was simple yet profound. Finish it. Let a Vance heart give it its first beat. For 2 years, Elias labored in solitude, deciphering his father's cryptic notes, re-engineering flawed components, and pouring his own genius into the project. When he finally succeeded, he held in his hands not just a working prototype, but the future of horology itself. It was magnificent, a triumph that surpassed even his father's ambitious dreams. But triumph, my friends, often attracts the attention of those who would steal its light for themselves. Enter Julian Croft, a name that would become synonymous with betrayal in the annals of horological history. Once, he had been Thomas Vance's apprentice, a young man blessed with natural talent, but cursed with an ambition that burned too hot for the patient world of traditional craftsmanship. He had left the Vance workshop years before, eager to make his fortune in the glittering world of Swiss luxury brands. And fortune he had found, building Croft Horological into a global empire that devoured historic brands and transformed them into marketing-driven behemoths. When Croft arrived at the Vance workshop that fateful day, his polished shoes clicking against the scarred floorboards like the ticking of a malevolent clock, he came bearing gifts wrapped in honeyed words. He spoke of partnership, of honoring Thomas's legacy, of bringing the Vance name to the world stage. His proposal seemed generous, a new brand called Vance by Croft, with Elias retaining full artistic control. But beneath the silk of his words lay the steel of deception. The partnership agreement was a masterpiece of legal treachery, its clauses as intricate and deadly as any clockwork mechanism. Buried deep within the boilerplate was a transfer of intellectual property rights, disguised as a mere formality for mass production. In reality, it was the kill switch that would destroy everything Elias held dear. For a year, the partnership seemed to flourish. Elias was given a state-of-the-art laboratory in Switzerland, where he refined the Chronos anchor for production. But then came the day when his key card no longer worked, when an email from Croft's legal department informed him that his services were no longer required. In a single stroke, Croft had stolen not just an invention, but an entire legacy. The patents were filed under Croft's name. The Croft anchor was announced to the world as his own innovation, based on early conceptual work from his apprenticeship days. Elias was erased from the narrative, his name scrubbed from history like dust from a watch face. When he tried to fight back through the courts, he discovered the true genius of Croft's trap. The very agreement he had signed gave his betrayer the legal high ground. The Vance workshop was seized to pay legal debts. The family name, a legacy of 3 generations, was extinguished. Elias Vance vanished from the world, becoming a ghost haunted by the ticking of a legacy that was no longer his. But in the crushing silence of his ruin, something new was born. Not the hot rage of the moment, but a cold, patient promise as intricate and precise as the movements he once built. He would not fight Croft with money or law, for those were weapons his enemy wielded with greater skill. Instead, he would fight with the one thing they both understood, the unforgiving, mechanical soul of a watch. For 10 years, Elias Vance ceased to exist. In his place walked a quiet man named Silas, a recluse who moved through the mountain-ringed watchmaking towns of Switzerland's Vallée de Joux like a shadow from another age. He took on simple repair work, enough to sustain life, while his true purpose remained hidden from the world. Those years were not spent in idle brooding, but in transformation. Elias understood that to defeat Croft, he had to transcend everything his father had ever been. He haunted university libraries, devouring texts on metallurgy and material science. He studied the resonant properties of crystals and the esoteric art of acoustic engineering. At his hidden workbench, he spent thousands of hours not just assembling watches, but mastering the science of their failure. He was no longer merely a watchmaker. He had become an architect of mechanical destiny. His plan began to form, a gambit of breathtaking complexity and patience that would make the great chess masters of history weep with admiration. He would not expose Croft with words or lawsuits, for those weapons had already failed him. Instead, he would build a trap, a masterpiece of horology that was also a masterpiece of revenge. The trap would take the form of a watch so beautiful, so technically complex, and so innovative that it would be undeniable. He would enter it into the Grand Prix de Horologerie de Genève, the most prestigious competition in the watchmaking world. And he knew that Julian Croft, whose ego was as vast as his fortune, would be there as the guest of honor and president of the judging panel. The watch would be called the Nemesis, and it would contain a secret that would destroy its eventual owner as surely as time destroys all things. The genius of the plan lay in a hidden complication that no examination could detect. The Nemesis would function perfectly, exceeding all known standards of accuracy and beauty. But it was designed to stop, not in a day or a week, but at a specific predetermined moment in the future. For 2 years, Elias labored over his creation, developing a unique metal alloy for the balance spring, that tiny, coiled heart that gives a watch its life. His alloy was a marvel of engineering. Strong, perfectly elastic, and completely anti-magnetic. But it harbored a secret property, engineered with precise calculation, a point of material fatigue that would occur after exactly 31,536,000,000 oscillations. To the uninitiated, this number was meaningless. To a horologist, it was elegantly simple. The exact number of vibrations a high-frequency balance will make in 1 calendar year. The Nemesis would be a ticking time bomb for Julian Croft's reputation, and Elias knew his enemy's psychology well enough to predict every move in their final game. The Grand Prix de Horologerie de Genève is the pinnacle of the watchmaking world, a night when the industry's elite gather in hushed reverence for the art they serve. In the autumn of 2035, the Theatre du Liman was filled with the most distinguished names in horology, and at the center of it all sat Julian Croft, exuding the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. When the independent entry from the unknown watchmaker Silas was unveiled, a wave of shock and awe rippled through the assembled masters. The Nemesis was a thing of impossible beauty, its case carved from a single block of sapphire crystal, revealing the entire movement within like a mechanical heart beating in a chest of glass. The dial was a deep, swirling blue, made from a mosaic of crushed lapis lazuli that seemed to hold the depths of eternity itself. But it was the movement that left even the most jaded experts breathless. Here was a tourbillon, a minute repeater, and a perpetual calendar, all constructed with a skeletal architecture that seemed almost alien in its perfection. Every surface was polished or beveled to a degree that challenged the very limits of human capability. The judges, including a visibly impressed Julian Croft, examined it under their loupes for hours, each discovering new marvels in its construction. That evening, the inevitable occurred. The Aiguille d'Or, the Golden Hand, the grand prize for the best watch of the year, was awarded to the Nemesis by the mysterious Silas. A polite, anonymous note was read, thanking the Academy and stating that the watch was its creator's only message to the world. The mystery of Silas became the talk of the industry. Who was this phantom who had emerged from nowhere to humble the giants of Swiss establishment? But the evening's true climax came with the charity auction, where the Nemesis was offered as the final lot. The bidding was ferocious, quickly surpassing all previous records. In the end, it came down to two determined bidders, a Saudi prince and an increasingly agitated Julian Croft. Croft's face was set in a mask of grim determination. He would not be denied this masterpiece created by his mysterious new rival. His final bid was a staggering 10 million Swiss francs. When the hammer fell, Julian Croft strode onto the stage and held the Nemesis aloft for the world's press to see. It was a display of ultimate victory. He had not only built an empire on stolen legacy, but had now literally purchased the work of the only man who could challenge him. Watching from a live stream in a small, Spartan apartment in Geneva was Elias Vance. He felt no triumph, only the quiet, cold satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. His work was not yet done. He sent a single, encrypted email to Anya Schmidt, the most respected and incorruptible horological journalist in the world. The message was brief. My real name is Elias Vance. I am the creator of the Chronos anchor. In 1 year to the day, ask Julian Croft for the time. The final gear of his Gambit had clicked into place. The year that followed was the apex of Julian Croft's career. He paraded the Nemesis at every opportunity, making it the centerpiece of his collection and the symbol of his unassailable position atop the watchmaking world. He gave interviews speaking magnanimously of the mysterious Silas, expressing his hope that the genius watchmaker would come forward to work for him. Meanwhile, Anya Schmidt had begun her own quiet investigation. The name Elias Vance led her down a rabbit hole of old court documents, forgotten articles, and hushed conversations with industry veterans. The story of Croft's betrayal began to emerge, piece by careful piece. She held onto the story, waiting, intrigued by the strange, prophetic email. On the evening of the 1-year anniversary of the GPHG, Croft was hosting a lavish gala at his lakeside villa to celebrate the continued success of the Croft anchor. Anya Schmidt was in attendance, watching and waiting. At precisely 10:15 p.m., the exact moment the award had been announced a year prior, she approached her host with a polite smile. "Mr. Croft," she said, her voice carrying the weight of destiny. "Your Nemesis is a magnificent piece. Might I trouble you for the time?" A broad smile crossed Croft's face as he proudly raised his wrist to display the watch. And then his smile froze. The delicate, sweeping second hand was still. The intricate tourbillon cage was motionless. The watch was dead. In a room filled with the world's most influential collectors and journalists, his 10 million franc masterpiece, the symbol of his genius, had inexplicably died. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. The world's greatest horological experts were summoned to examine the watch. They opened it with the reverence reserved for holy relics, expecting to find a broken gear or dislodged jewel. What they discovered baffled them completely. There was no sign of damage, no shock, no magnetism. The watch was pristine in every respect. But the balance spring, the heart of the movement, had simply ceased to be a spring. Under an electron microscope, they discovered a single, clean fracture at the molecular level. It hadn't broken, it had fulfilled its purpose. It was Anya Schmidt who assembled the final pieces of the puzzle. Her exposé laid bare the entire history, the stolen legacy of the Chronos anchor, the systematic ruin of Elias Vance, and the diabolical, poetic justice of the Nemesis. The watch was not just a masterpiece of creation, she wrote, but a masterpiece of calculated destruction. Its creator had not built a timepiece to tell time, but to mark it and to end it. And so, my friends, we come to the end of our tale, though its lessons echo through eternity like the ticking of an eternal clock. The story of Elias Vance teaches us that justice, like time itself, moves with its own inexorable rhythm. It may seem slow to those who suffer injustice, but it is as certain as the sunrise. Julian Croft's reputation was destroyed utterly. He was revealed as a fraud, a thief, and a fool who had paid a fortune to orchestrate his own public humiliation. His empire crumbled, his stock plummeted, and the man who had built his success on a stolen name became a global laughingstock. But perhaps the most profound lesson lies not in Croft's downfall, but in Elias's transformation. Faced with the theft of his legacy, he did not succumb to bitterness or despair. Instead, he channeled his pain into purpose, his anger into art. He became something greater than he had ever been, not just a craftsman but an architect of justice itself. Elias Vance never returned to the spotlight, for he had no need of it. His revenge was complete, but more importantly, his family's honor was restored. The world now knew that the name Vance was synonymous not just with brilliant craftsmanship, but with a form of justice as patient, precise, and inescapable as time itself. In the end, the Nemesis was more than a watch. It was a testament to the power of patience, the precision of planning, and the ultimate triumph of truth over deception. It reminds us that in a world where the powerful often prey upon the innocent, there exists a higher justice that operates by its own immutable laws. Time, you see, is the great equalizer. It reveals all secrets, settles all debts, and ensures that every action, no matter how carefully concealed, eventually faces its reckoning. The tick of a clock is not just the measurement of moments passing. It is the heartbeat of justice itself, patient and persistent, marking time until truth finally prevails. And somewhere, in a small, quiet workshop nestled in the mountains, Elias Vance continues his work, a man whose family legacy is no longer a burden to be fulfilled, but a legend that stands timeless and secure. For he has learned the greatest secret of all, that true mastery lies not in the creation of beautiful things, but in the patient pursuit of justice, measured not in moments, but in the eternal rhythm of what is right. Let this tale remind us all that no theft goes unpunished forever, no injustice remains hidden indefinitely, and no legacy built on lies can withstand the patient, inexorable march of time. For in the end, time tells all truths, and justice, like the finest timepiece, keeps perfect time. Thus concludes the tale of the Horologist's Gambit, a story of time, honor, and the ultimate triumph of justice over deception.